Tonight, we have learned that the Department of Justice is opening a criminal investigation into a scheme by the world's largest car company to rig its vehicles to cheat on U.S. emissions tests. Volkswagen's CEO, who is an engineer, apologized today, but sorry, didn't cut it with investors. VW stock drove off a cliff, down more than 17% in the U.S. The company saw more than $14 billion go up in smoke in one trading session, and it now faces billions in fines. Chris Van Cleve is following this.
The EPA alleges the German automaker designed a so-called defeat device to allow cars to pass emissions tests they should have failed. Certain diesel models were designed with sophisticated software that used information including the position of the steering wheel and vehicle speed to determine the car was undergoing emissions testing. Under that circumstance, the engine would reduce toxic emissions. But the car was rigged to bypass that when it was being driven. Emissions increased 10 to 40 times above acceptable EPA levels. Professor Dan Carter was among the researchers at West Virginia University who first reported the difference in emissions last year.
Once we started the test, it didn't take us long to realize that the emission levels for the two Volkswagen vehicles were much higher than their certification levels.
The carmaker ordered VW and Audi dealers to immediately stop selling affected models of the Beetle, Golf, Jetta, Passat, and Audi A3 model years 2009 to 2015. Volkswagen's CEO admitted guilt and offered an apology in a statement. "I personally am deeply sorry that we have broken the trust of our customers and the public. We do not and will not tolerate violations of any kind of our internal rules or of the law."
Hi, I'm Terry Wilson. My wife is Amy Wilson. She's giving a presentation today on ethics. She did what she did, and honestly, I'm really happy she got caught and, went to jail, served her time. And she really has changed her life around, which is kind of unusual. It doesn't always happen that way. And I guess all the praise has to go to God for that. And so we was watching television, and this Volkswagen story broke loose, and I was like, that's pretty crazy, because there has to be so many people involved at so many different levels for this to take place. And this is just when it broke as a national U.S. news. And then to figure out this is like a worldwide affecting 11 million vehicles. I worked at Toyota for 15 years, got involved with some of the field engineers. Eventually ended up with a Toyota Master Diagnostic Technician, ASE Certified Master, L1, which is their advanced engine performance tests they have, and also, of course, a Toyota Master Technician. There is a lot of hands-on. There's many different people in every different aspect of automobile manufacturing and engineering and designing. There's no way I can believe that there's just a few people involved knowing that this failure of their vehicle, not actually in real-world environments, delivering the emission standards they were designed to meet. But how many people could agree to work in such a situation to not come forward? Apparently somebody did come forward in 2011 as a whistleblower, and he was pretty much just blown off. I could be wrong, but there's just no way that Martin Winterkorn could say he didn't know anything about it, because he was a key driver for them to push to be the #1 sales company of automobiles in the world. They won to exceed Toyota, who's been the #1 sales for quite some time. But I have learned that this is going back as far as in 2007 when Mr. Winterkorn has taken over, because originally Volkswagen planned to use a system similar to Mercedes with their BlueTech, using a urea fluid, which most diesels do use, to make them hit their emission standards. But they figured they could come up with some sort of in-house way to achieve this goal, even though all the other manufacturers have tried and failed. And their whole idea of their clean diesel, which is, it's a great idea. I love diesel engines. They've been around for a long time, and they really are impressive for what they do. However, they create a lot of emissions. It's a big drawback to them. And most manufacturers took a long time to come to the U.S. again, like BMW took them a long time. Mercedes, they didn't come with diesel for a long time until they had them where they were proven. But Volkswagen's been selling it for quite some time, and they've been doing a really good job at it. It wasn't too long ago, I think it's 2011 or 12, they'd opened a new plant in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and there's Mr. Winterkorn pushing their goals to become the #1 car manufacturer. It's a great goal to have, but sometimes you lose sight of what's really important. For this to have taken place, there has to be a culture of allowable corruption, because there's just no way that this computer software was developed by one or two rogue high-end computer software engineers. When they do their emissions testing, they essentially put them what they call as a dynamometer, which is essentially the car that's in a stationary position and doesn't move forward, but it's on rollers and allows the wheels and tires to rotate, and they simulate different driving situations like taking off and stopping and steady state cruising at lower speeds than highway speeds. And they have this collection system in the back collecting all the stuff coming out of the tailpipe, and that's how they measure your emissions output. But what doesn't take place is there's really no change in air temperature, there's no change in steering angle input, there's very little brake input, and the engineers at Volkswagen had figured a way to write a subroutine in their engine computer program that could recognize when this vehicle was being emission tested to actually pass these tests. However, the consumer, if they would drive this car during this mode of operation, they would have greatly decreased power and they would not be satisfied with the performance of their vehicle at all. Because Volkswagen, their key thing was they were touting their diesels against the hybrids electrics because they had excellent power without sacrificing fuel economy and emissions. And that's how they push their big thing of the diesel market. And like I said, there's like 500,000 vehicles in the US and almost 11 million worldwide. So this is a very widespread problem. You know what I'd like to see happen? Was see some of these people who've been involved in writing this computer programming, even higher up, to actually come clean and admit that what they did was wrong and take ownership and give us full details of how, why, where this all took place. Was it just the pressure from becoming number one? Was it other pressures that they justified doing what they did was okay? Companies need to realize that it is time to do what's right, and you'll do good in the world. If you can actually show that you are doing good in the world and building a great product that is going to deliver on the emissions and the great fuel economy and the excellent performance, you're going to sell those vehicles. I mean, people love diesels. The following of the Volkswagen diesels are unreal. Those people love those cars. However, now that they realize they're driving a gross polluting vehicle, a lot of them who bought that thing on the green promise will not be satisfied. But now they're driving a gross polluter. I just want to see people admit the truth and come clean and tell them that, hey, I was involved in this. I'm ashamed I did it. Here's was my part in this role. And here's what also I know is X, Y, and Z was involved, and it went all the way up to the top. There's like a spirit of corporate corruption possibly, that a lot of things are known that are not up to par, that's just passed on. They kind of laugh and joke about the dumb consumers and the dumb government's not smart enough to figure it out. And people need to pay some price for this, because this is borderline very criminal even, as far as the amount of deception, the lies, the emission failures is just, I don't have a good word for it, it is just baffling to me of how bad they actually pollute without those components on their engines. And people thought that was okay. And they justified it some way, shape, or form. And it makes me really sad.